بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. So alhamdulillah, we are in the last few days of Ramadan, entering into the 27th night of this Ramadan of the year 1441, 1441 years after the hijrah of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is in these blessed nights that the Prophet ﷺ instructed us to look for and التمس ليلة القدر التي هي خير من ألف شهر, to look for the night of value, the night of Qadr, that is better than 1,000 months. And this also turning into the 27th night, because some riwayat hadith that particularly indicate the 27th as well. So it's an opportunity to avail ourselves of this great immense blessing and barakah, to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He asked us to seek Him. So we are not seeking the night, we are not seeking necessarily the reward associated with the night, but ultimately we are seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, and by fulfilling His commands as He instructed us, we inshallah find that with Him Azza wa Jal. And we are continuing to reflect upon and look at some of the verses corresponding to juz, each part of the Quran that corresponds to a particular night. And we are now in the 27th juz, and we'll be looking at the first 18 verses or so of Surah An-Najm. Surah An-Najm, which corresponds to the 53rd surah, 53rd chapter of Al-Quran Al-Kareem. وقوله تعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والنجم إذا هوى ما ضل صاحبكم وما غوى وما ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى علمه شديد القوى ذو مرة فاستوى وهو بالأفق الأعلى ثم دنا فتدلى فكان قاب قوسين أو أدنى فأوحى إلى عبده ما أوحى ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى أفتمارونه على ما يرى ولقد رآه نزلة أخرى عند سدرة المنتهى عندها جنة المأوى إذ يغشى السدرة ما يغشى ما زاغ البصر وما طغى لقد رأى من آيات ربه الكبرى صدق الله العظيم. So Surah An-Najm, and the Najm is usually translated as a star. And here in the surah we have verses that indicate the Isra, or specifically the Mi'raj, the ascension of the Prophet ﷺ, Laylat al-Isra al-Mi'raj, in the month of Rajab, while he was in Mecca, just a few months after the passing away of Khadija and his uncle Abu Talib, Khadija radiallahu anha. And so the Prophet ﷺ then found himself, some of the narrations that indicate either he was in his house or he was in the Hijr Ismail, which is that semicircle around the Kaaba, which depicted and still to this day depicts the original qawa'id, the original foundations of the Kaaba. So it was more rectangular than actually a perfect cubit. And he was lying there between two men, resting. Some say that that was Sayyidina Hamza and Sayyidina Ali. And then Jibreel alayhi salam came and took him on the back of the buraq, an animal, a winged animal that was smaller than a horse but larger than a mule, and taken on its back to Bayt al-Maqdis, to Jerusalem, but not before stopping in several places beforehand, including Al-Madinah, Yathrib, and including Tur Sina, where Mosaad alayhi salam received the sacred scripture, the sacred scrolls, and also stopping in Beit Lahem, Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus the son of Mary, and then finally to Bayt al-Maqdis, where he led 124,000 prophets in prayer on the site there in Masjid al-Aqsa. And then Jibreel alayhi salam appeared to him again to take him to through the seven heavens, where he encountered various prophets, and then finally to Sidratul Muntaha, the furthest low tree, which is what the verses here are talking about. So it begins the surah, وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى, by the star when it sets. And why particularly when it sets? They say that وَبِالنَّجْمِ هُمْ يَهْتَدُونَ, another verse in the Quran. And by the stars they can be guided. So people who understand the positions of the stars, مواقع النجوم, can use them for mapping and for navigation. The commentator Ibn Ajiba said that it only works for navigation when you can tell the movement of the star, right? When it's either in its highest point or its lowest point, not when it's in the middle of the sky. So when Najmi idha hawa, when the Najm descends, right, while it is a signifier of finding navigation and guidance via the stars in the direction that you want to go. That's why the next verse, وَمَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى. Your companion, here the sahib, and it's speaking to Quraysh, right? This particular verse, مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى. Your companion has not strayed, and he is not deluded. And what's the relation of that to the verse that came before it? Well, because the verse that came before it is talking about guidance. And so if we go from physical navigation and guidance, true guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, he is rightly guided. Your companion, sahibukum. See how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the Quraysh. He's your sahib, right? They didn't accept him as a prophet, but they at least knew him to be sadiq, they knew him to be truthful and to be ameen and to be trustworthy. Ma dal, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has not gone astray. He's not strayed and he's not deluded. وَمَا غَوَى. So they said, what's the difference between al-dalal and the verb that came after it? غَوَى. Ibn Ajiba said, according al-Fakhr al-Razi, that al-ghay, which is the noun form of ghawa, al-ghay, the opposite of it is of rushd, right? And rushd is also has the meaning of guidance, and the opposite of dalal is huda, also meaning guidance. But they said dalal, ma dal, it's more general. Al-ghay, then that is even the worst form of misguidance. Dalal means someone is misguided, but they can come back. So they slipped. Okay, when you say ضليت الطريق, I got lost. Like okay, I was trying to follow the stars, or had my GPS and I got lost. ضليت الطريق. That means you're not lost forever. You can come back. أما الغي means someone who is completely lost, and there's little hope that they will come back from that. So your Prophet ﷺ, your sahib, ما ضل صاحبكم وما غوى وما ينطق عن الهوى. Speak of his own volition. He does not speak from his own desire. وما ينطق عن الهوى, which is the kalam or the nutq. What most people say is something because they have a desire to speak, right? They have a desire to say something. They want to elicit a reaction from somebody. They want to feel like they're heard. They want to make a point. Again, these are all things that go back to the me or the I. For prophets, that's not the case. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. They don't speak because of hawa. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى. The Quran then is nothing less than a revelation. In huwa, what's huwa? In nutq, ma yantiqu bihi. That which he speaks of, it's wahi, right? In huwa, so in huwa, here you have a phrase that is called in Arabic lil hasr. So it is nothing but, or is nothing less, as he translated here, nothing other than wahi. So that which he pronounces is wahi. So wahi can come in the form of the Quran, when the Prophet ﷺ tells the Sahaba, his scribes, this is a number whatever, and this verse belongs here, and it's part of this chapter. This is wahi min Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it could be al-wahi that is mutlaq, unqualified wahi, in other words, directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it could be inspired wahi. So the sunnah, right, the deeds, and the way that the Prophet, the way that he spoke to people, the way that he carried himself, that's also wahi, right? So his af'al, that which he does, that which he speaks, is also wahi. It's also revelation, and that means it's also binding upon the believers. There is a small subset. Sallallahu used to do, or might have encouraged or asked about, that they say, and this comes up in theology, it's called ijtihadat al-anbiya. Did the Prophet ﷺ make ijtihad, which means did he actually use his own personal reasoning to draw a conclusion about? And the ulama kind of are a little bit mixed about that, but the qawl al-rajah, the dominant opinion, is that yes, there is some sort of ijtihad that the Prophet ﷺ could possibly do, but he would clearly point that out, or it would be obvious from the situation, like when the Prophet ﷺ, prior to the Ghazwat Badr, prior to the Battle of Badr, on the night before, he was assembled with his companions, and he said, "We'll make camp here." And one of the companions asked him, this idea of making camp here, like settling here and drawing our tents and waiting for battle the next morning, is that something that is from wahi? Is that something that Allah revealed to you? Or is it your idea or makida, yani your strategic opinion about this? He said, no, it's actually my strategic opinion. He said, if this is the case, the Sahabi, then we should move further up so that we have all of the wells, all of the water to ourselves, and we deny well water to our enemies, which is completely legitimate in battle, in war. And he said, and the Prophet ﷺ deferred to that opinion, and he said, okay, let's do that. So, but otherwise, we say that everything that emanates from our Prophet ﷺ, and here clearly the verse says it, he does not speak from his own desire, in huwa illa wahyun yuha. And I would say even when he said, let's make camp here, and then the Sahaba said, let's make it somewhere else, that also is not exactly outside of wahi, right? But because the Prophet ﷺ was still inspired by Allah to say it, but also was made to prove a point that the Prophet ﷺ can make an opinion, and if he says that it's not something directly revealed to him in the wahi al-mutlaq, right, the unqualified wahi, then people can ask about it, and then there could be akhdhu wa ata, there could be a discourse or conversation about it. Just like the Prophet ﷺ is commanded in the Quran to seek shura, right? وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. شَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, take their opinion, get their counsel, because that's also part of the Sharia, to seek counsel, even if you're a prophet, because you are making an example for those to come after you. فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. But if you have azima, if you are resolved based upon the decision that was made, فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, then have complete tawakkul, have complete reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ثم يقول الله عز وجل علمه شديد القوة. It was taught to him with those who has mighty powers, شديد القوة. So the next few verses, there's two main opinions about who these verses are talking about. Who is the one who taught him شديد القوة? Who ذو مرة فاستوى, right, with great strength. وهو بالأفق الأعلى, and the highest horizon. ثم دنا فتدلى, then came down. So one opinion is that this is Jibreel alayhi salam, referring to the archangel Gabriel alayhi salam in this description. And it said that on this night, the Prophet ﷺ also saw Jibreel in his true form. And it's recorded that none of the other prophets, even though they also received wahi, he was the angel of revelation for them, like Mosaad and Ibrahim and others. None of them had seen Jibreel in his true form except for our Prophet ﷺ. Otherwise, he appeared in the form of a person or a man, someone that might have looked familiar to them. So on other occasions when the Prophet ﷺ appeared, when Jibril alayhi appeared to the Prophet ﷺ, and sometimes the Sahaba were around and they saw a man, like what's famously referred to as Hadith Jibril, the Hadith of Islam and Iman and Ihsan. And the man that whose form he took is known by the name of Dahya al-Kalbi. And Dahya al-Kalbi was known as an ambassador amongst the Arabs during the time even before Islam. So he took that familiar form. But he also can appear in his true form. And when he appears in his true form, the Prophet ﷺ saw him filling the horizon from east to west, as far as the eye can see. That was Jibreel, alayhi salam. The other opinion, no, this is referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not Jibreel. And some of the ulama also said that was possible, but again, in a manner that's commensurate with Allah's majesty. So when the verses say, ذو مرة فاستوى, right? The Quran does say Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, that the Rahman has been established on the throne in a manner commensurate with His Majesty, not in a literal sense, not in that Allah takes up space, not in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a direction, but in a manner that Allah knows the true meaning. وَهُوَ بِالْأُفُقِ الْأَعْلَى, again, and in the highest horizon, Allah is not in a place, but again, it's more allegorical or metaphorical. ثُمَّ دَنَا فَتَدَلَّى, right? And then approached, coming down. فَكَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى, then he was 2 bow lengths away, or even closer. So if these verses are talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it means possibly the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the nur, the light of God. It is kind of an established principle that no one could, be exposed to or gaze upon the true light of God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except they would be completely incinerated. It's impossible. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He shows us يَتَجَلَّى لَنَا, so tajalli means He manifests something of His divine names and attributes. It's in a manner that we can handle, not more that we can handle. The sun itself is a type of tajalli, and we can't even look straight into the sun, except that we would burn our eyesight. So what about if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had this tajalli al-jabaruti, as they say, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us something of the jabarut, some of the essence, that tajalli. No one will be able to survive that. No one can be able to handle that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يتجلى للأشخاص وللأشياء, in a manner that is commensurate with His Majesty, and in a way that people can handle and can absorb. And during the Mi'raj of the Prophet ﷺ, when he ascended, it said before he did so, just like when he was a young boy of 3 or 4 years old, and the angels came and took out his heart and put it in a basin and removed one black dot or blemish from it, which was the nasib of the shaitan, which never got to the Prophet ﷺ, but that was removed. Then also this was done, some of the riwayat indicate this was done right before the Mi'raj as well. Because where the Prophet ﷺ was going, and the Sidratul Muntaha, as mentioned in the verses here, to the furthest low tree, even Jibril said, I cannot go up with you beyond this point. I am not equipped to go further than this point. And this is when the Prophet ﷺ went to the furthest low tree and beyond that. And then the communion with God. Did he actually see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This was the opinion of Ibn Abbas. Ra'a Rabbahu, that he saw Him in a manner commensurate with His Majesty. How did he see Him? Not with Ayn al-Basar, or if it was with the eyes, it was with the eyes where the Prophet ﷺ was completely, in a sense, transformed into Ayn al-Basira. So he was completely transformed, that he was looking with his inner eye. So even though maybe his eyes were there, but he was looking with his inner eye, the eye of the heart. And even when he was asked by Ibn Mas'ud in some of the riwayas in Sahih Muslim, he said, هل رأيت ربك? What did you see there? Did you see your Lord? He said, one riwayah says, نور أني أرى. Another riwayah says, نور أنا أرى. So he said, light, I could see it. أني أرى. And another one, نور أنا أرى, or light, how could I see? And the meanings are similar, which means it's just light, it's nur, right? So tajalli, so the manifestation of the beautiful name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of Ar-Rahman, of Al-Latif, of Al-Khabir. They made their manifestation in a manner that the Prophet ﷺ was able to absorb that and to see it, in the sense, isn't in as much as can be seen by a human being in this dunya. This is if the verses are referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they're referring to Jibreel, then no, then he saw Jibreel, and Jibreel was up in the horizon. Then Jibreel descended. He is a being. He can go. He could be in a place. He takes up space and he descends. And then he descended to the Prophet ﷺ. فَكَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى. And this is a popular Arabic expression, especially in the time of pre-Islamic Arabia. قَابَ قَوْسَيْن, 2 bow lengths, right? And this was like, oh, it's very close, like 2 bow lengths. أَوْ أَدْنَى, or even closer, right? And that's how the Arabs used to say that. فَأَوْحَى إِلَى عَبْدِهِ مَا أَوْحَى. And then he revealed to his servant Ma awha. So in the beginning he was called his sahib when the verses are addressing the Quraysh directly. Ma dhalla sahibukum wa ma ghawa. And then when he receives the wahi, فَأَوْحَى إِلَى عَبْدِهِ مَا أَوْحَى. And then he gave the revelation to his servant, مَا أَوْحَى. This also is a type of rhetorical expression in Arabic. When you say to someone, he gave him what he gave, he took what he took, he received what he received. In Arabic, this means, the meaning behind it is لِلتَفْخِيم. So it means it's not quantifiable, right? Either in magnitude, or like in quantity, or in quality. So not quantifiable, not qualifiable. فَأَوْحَى إِلَى عَبْدِهِ مَا أَوْحَى. So he revealed to him that which he revealed, what he chose to reveal. So either from al-Malak Jibreel, or directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we said earlier about the verses. ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى. ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى. The Prophet's own heart did not distort what he saw. So the Prophet ﷺ knew exactly what he was saying. His fu'ad, his heart. And even in another narration in Tabarani, I believe, when he was asked, what did you see? He said, رَأَيْتُهُ بِفُؤَادِي. I saw God with my fu'ad, with my heart. And that's what fu'ad means. So this was not a distortion, it was not a mistake. This was confirmation of the Mi'raj of our Prophet ﷺ. And then there's a rebuttal or rebuke to the Quraysh when it says back to them, أَفَتُمَارُونَهُ عَلَى مَا يَرَى. أَفَتُمَارُونَهُ عَلَى مَا يَرَى. Are you going to dispute with him what he saw, with what he actually saw? عَلَى مَا يَرَى. What he saw with his heart, with his fu'ad. And the ru'ya al-basiriyya أحق من الرؤيا البصرية. So seeing with the inner, if you're seeing with the inner eye, then you are seeing, it's a more certain seeing than the eyes of the physical eyes. The physical eyes can see something and it could be a mirage, so kasarab, right? Like something that looks like it's there, it's not there. But if the inner eye is غير مطموس, right? It's not blemished, and it's seeing as it's seeing, then it ترى الحق كما هو, right? It sees the haqq as it truly is. It sees the reality as it truly is. That's why one of our dua we say أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. Show us, and أرنا means let us see, يعني see رؤية قلبية. Let us see with our hearts الحق حقا, truth as it truly is. وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه, and show this falsehood as truly falsehood, so we may avoid the falsehood and we may follow the haqq, we may follow the truth. And then after that, وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ نَزْلَةً أُخْرَى عِنْدَ سِدْرَةِ الْمُنْتَهَى. And then he saw him, a second time he saw him by the lote tree beyond which none may pass. عندها جنة المأوى, and that is where Jannat al-Ma'wa is, right? And near the garden of al-Ma'wa, the true garden. So again, if it's applying to Jibreel, then he saw Jibreel again in all his full form. What if it's seeing Allah? Then it's like when he saw Allah throughout his whole life, be maqam al-mushahada, all things In other words, seeing that Allah huwa al-fa'il al-haqiqi, Allah is the true doer of all things. That is a type of ru'ya. And then he sees him once again, marratan ukhra, عند سدرة المنتهى, again in a manner that's commensurate with the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a light, in a way that we cannot comprehend, and that only the heart of the Prophet ﷺ, after being properly prepared for it, could possibly absorb. And then عندها جنة المأوى, they said, this Jannah, is this the same Jannah that we're going to? The dominant opinion, yes, it's the same Jannah, inshallah, that we hope to go to after death, after we cross the Sirat bridge over hellfire, and then we go to the Hawd of the Prophet ﷺ, and he gives us a drink, after which we will never go thirsty again, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may enter us into paradise. And this low tree that they say, again, it's a low tree, it's a type of tree, but they said it's so enormous that to go from one side of it to the other would take 1,000 years, and that its shade alone can cover all of the universe underneath it. So again, these are things we can't actually fathom, but it shows us the qudra, the omnipotence and the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also the fadl and the tashrif, the virtue and the great honor that was accorded to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this particular ummah. And as a result, this ummah will be the first ummah to enter into paradise. The first person to walk into paradise will be our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then following him after that will be members of his ummah, before any of the other prophets or any of the other communities. So this is a great, great honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. عندها جنة المأوى إذ يغشى السدرة ما يغشى. Restfulness covered in splendor. His sight never wavered. The verse after that, ما زاغ البصر وما طغى لقد رأى من آيات ربه الكبرى. His sight was never wavered, nor was it too bold, and he saw some of his Lord. So the signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw of his Lord, we also know some of the hadith that he was given a glimpse into what the na'im of al-Jannah looks like. He saw the Jannah that was made for Umar ibn al-Khattab, and he even saw his jariyah, the woman that will be his wife in Jannah, and he saw many of the beautiful things in paradise, and he also saw some of the chastisements of the people in hellfire. So these are min al-ayati rabbihi kubra. And then he came back to the believers, and he continued in his mission. And after that, after he had lost his closest people in his life, Sayyidatina Khadija radiallahu anha and Abu Talib, then he was in a sense without a human person who kind of had his back, so to speak. So one way of understanding this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became his sahib, in a sense even greater than before. Of course, Allah was a sahib before that, but God, al-Kubra, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was accorded the most beautiful and amazing night that any human being will ever have or ever can imagine to have. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.